architect Ramakrishna Rao in a one-on-one dialogue with architect Nirmal Mangal, my old friend and classmate. We're going to talk today about sustainability and smartening of Indian towns. The word tradition will not be able to describe what went on in our Vedic days. Our Vedic planner Mansara created so very good sustainable settlements where the river was on one side, the mountains on the other side, and excellently planned settlements which were self-sufficient, which neither polluted the river, nor did they cut the forest. And yet everybody lived in comfort. Let's come a little ahead in time and look at Mohenjo-daro. Beautiful towns were laid with drainage systems, baths at one end, silos at the other end, and people of all vocations sharing a common town. How then are we now talking about sustainability as if it is a new word, a new vocabulary which has come into our dictionary? Sustainability has always been a part of Indian ethos, whether it was the Gurukul where the priest and the hermit had people around him, or it was our smaller towns and settlements. Every time sustainability was there. Our towns were self-sufficient. So today we need to relook at this with the concept of Indian towns and in the context of our Indian towns, sustainability and the process of trying to smarten the Indian towns rather than the global world of smart city. Nirmal?
Thank you, Ramakrishna. I'm Nirmal Mangal. I'm an architect in Mumbai. We have been lately discussing many of the initiatives that affects the built environment. For last about 15 years, this in our vocabulary has come sustainable design. In last about 7-8 years, we've been hearing about concept of smart cities. And then more recently with coronavirus pandemic, we have been asked to find solutions so that our built environment can handle these pandemics. So let's examine these issues one at a time. Sustainability. I agree with Ramakrishna that sustainability is certainly an Indian concept. We have been doing this from the time of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, and we've been doing that because of economic necessity. If you were to look at recycling of materials, be it building construction or otherwise, India is number one, both in both pre-consumer and post-consumer recycling. So, and within each of these three aspects that I talked about, there are three components of that. One is passive initiatives, the other is active initiatives, and the third is what technology bringing to any of these notions of sustainability or smart city development. So in terms of passive initiative for sustainability, we are looking at things which are readily available, like, for example, recycling of construction waste, reduce dependence on groundwater, or recharge our groundwater to the extent possible. An active initiative, we are looking at orienting building that best uses orientation for exposure to sun and also for ventilation. Also maximize the use of lighting by use of light shelf and skylights and things like that. And we use material which makes common sense. Means they are local, regional, they are easily available. We also want to use landscaping to reduce the heat footprint as well. And wherever possible, we reuse the water either by harvesting rainwater or using rain. Everything related to technology needs to be very, very which needs to be high performance HVAC, high performance lighting, solar water heaters. We need to find ways to maximize the use of power generation using photovoltaic. There are many such initiatives that can be discussed later on. Smart cities originally came with the concept that the city is well connected, and people thought that if we have fast internet, that is all well and good. But it is a lot more than that. It means that all infrastructure for the towns and cities are interconnected, which includes water, data, electricity. It includes the sewage system. It includes the stormwater system. They are all managed through a demand basis system. Now, in order to do and maximize all that, we need to really look at building our infrastructure from ground zero. Means that the infrastructure is based on how much the demand is there, what is our population, what is our demographic, all that needs to come about so that all these new developments that are coming up, they are plug and play. Uh, and my belief is that most of the infrastructure that we don't have shortage. What we have is abundant wastage of infrastructure resources. Once we have this smart development, I believe that all that kind of thing would simply go away. The other thing that we also need to look at in terms of smart city development is that look at redundancy in our power and data and things like that, which keeps things functioning. The last thing, which is a newer term that Ramakrishna and I have been discussing, is reliant architecture. Reliant architecture means that in case of hurricane, in case of pandemic, these kind of disasters, do our cities, do our towns can be self-reliant so that they simply do not shut down. And the way to do all these things is that we build systems which takes into account uh, how we can be self-sufficient. And the example of that is that there is a water storage system, because we've been using rainwater harvesting and collecting um, gray water. There is photovoltaic system with the storage system built into it, that at least the critical power needs are met. There are many such initiatives that can be uh, implemented in our architecture so that our entire towns, our cities are really sustainable, they are smart, and they're reliant. Back to you, Ramakrishna.
Excellent, Nirmal. And I'm going to add to that. You put so much emphasis on technology. I'm going to look at another aspect of our smarting of our Indian towns is the ethos of socio-cultural systems. How we already have systems in place which allows us to add in anything when required, either in terms of manpower or expertise or in terms of usage patterns. And the newer question now must be, where is the economic base for this going to come? And if we start looking at capturing this redundancy that you mentioned, I'm sure even that economic issue can be taken up. And I think we can positively look at reliant architecture, socio-economic conditions, taking care of redundancy, and using our natural resources and say we can be sustainable, our cities can be sustainable, and sustainability can be a word in the new Indian towns. Nirmal?
Well, I think this is very relevant. I think all three aspects that I talked about. I must say that any initiatives, any means and method that we learn from abroad, I think they need to be Indianized. We need to ensure that they are relevant to our needs, our socio-cultural needs, and our way of doing things. Not everything that we learn from abroad is really relevant to Indian context. That's a very big lesson that we need to learn, that, when first sustainability came about, people really jumped up and down about that. But the reality is that we've been doing sustainable building for generations, actually. So it's not today that we are looking at, it's just that we are learning it from the West that, oh, there is something of sustainable design. Similar effort really needs to go in smart development for our townships, which are many new townships are coming. Here is an opportunity with clean slate to really develop something that really makes sense for us. Uh, you know, and what has happened is that this pandemic has taught us that how such events can happen for which we are grossly unprepared. And this is where our design profession really needs to roll up their sleeves and say that we have a solution for this. And actually, the solution is right in front of us. That we should be so self-sufficient in what we do, in how we live, how our buildings function. That if all these services are tomorrow either rationed or minimized, we can still function appropriately and efficiently. Thank you.
Yeah. I would just like to add a word in saying, let's also relook at our architectural education and bring in some of these inputs into it. Thank you.
Thank you.